Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a closer look at a phenomenon we see right across Southeast Asia, the really powerful role of political families.
That's right. If you follow the politics of this region, you'll quickly notice these recurring family names in positions of power.
Yeah, absolutely. From the Marcos family in the Philippines to the Lees in Singapore, and of course several very prominent political families right here in Thailand.
Definitely.
And for this deep dive, we've pulled together a stack of sources to really unpack the story of two particularly influential families from neighboring countries, the Shinawatra family here in Thailand and the Hun family over in Cambodia. We're going to trace their paths to power and then, maybe most interestingly, explore this striking perceived connection between them.
And how that connection, well, according to one specific analysis in our sources anyway, might be influencing the relationship between Thailand and Cambodia.
Exactly, especially when it comes to things like border issues.
It's a complex picture, for sure. And our goal here is really just to extract the most important facts and, the key insights from these materials to help you understand the dynamics at play.
Okay, let's dive into these sources then. They start by giving us that broader context you mentioned, just acknowledging that, the presence of notable political families is a significant reality throughout the ASEAN region, sort of setting the stage.
And what's really compelling, I think, is seeing how deeply a single family can, shape a nation's trajectory over decades.
Right.
So looking at Cambodia first, Hun Sen has been, the dominant figure for a very, very long time. He served an incredibly long tenure as prime minister and now holds the position of president of the Senate.
And our sources reveal a fascinating personal history for him. Born Hun Bunal, later changed his name. A key moment, it seems, was 1975 when he joined the Khmer Rouge.
But he was injured during the fall as Phnom Penh lost sight in one eye.
Right. And crucially, he then broke away from the brutal Pol Pot regime and, according to the sources, defected to Vietnam.
That defection was absolutely critical. After Vietnam helped overthrow the Khmer Rouge in '79, Hun Sen, he rose quickly through the ranks of the new Vietnamese-backed government. Became foreign minister at, 26? Remarkably young.
Yeah, really young. Then prime minister in 1985. The sources also mention that after the UN-backed election in 1993, where the opposition actually won, he initially rejected the results.
Led to civil unrest before he eventually agreed to serve as co-prime minister. But then he consolidated power fully after a coup in 1997, becoming the sole prime minister the year after.
So his record, as presented in our sources, it's certainly multifaceted. The Cambodian People's Party, the CPP he leads, has secured successive election victories.
Though the sources do note some of these have been pretty controversial, including a landslide win that came right after the main opposition party was dissolved.
Okay. Economically, though, he's overseen periods of significant growth.
At the same time, his long rule is, it's consistently associated in the sources with serious criticisms, corruption, extensive deforestation, human rights numbers. It's a leadership story marked by both, significant state building and considerable controversy.
And the most recent chapter involves the transition to the next generation. His eldest son, Hun Manet, became prime minister last year.
Although Hun Sen remains firmly at the head of the ruling party, the CPP, and is expected to take on other key roles, so he's still very much in the picture.
Right, still influential.
The sources describe Hun Sen's political ideology as having shifted over time, but always grounded in this strong sense of Cambodian nationalism.
And foreign policy.
Very close ties with China, huge investment from China, while often being openly critical of Western powers. And notably for our discussion today, his tenure has involved these recurring diplomatic disputes with Thailand.
Okay, so moving over to Thailand then. Our sources detail the rise of another family with immense political pull, the Shinawatra family.
Their story, according to the sources, starts with Seng Saiko, a Chinese immigrant who settled and built a successful silk business up in Chiang Mai.
From those business foundations, the family really ascended to national political prominence, spearheaded, of course, by Thaksin Shinawatra.
Right. He achieved massive success in business first, founding companies like AIS, the telecom giant, before making that leap into politics. And that really paved the way for other family members.
And it's kind of remarkable how many reached the very top. 4 members of the Shinawatra family, or its direct relatives, have served as Prime Minister of Thailand.
Yeah, Thaksin himself, then his brother-in-law Somchai Wongswat, his sister Yingluck Shinawatra, and most recently his youngest daughter, Pattungtarn Shinawatra.
Yes, the sources note Patumtorn was a prime ministerial candidate nominee in the 2023 election and actually became prime minister in 2024.
Even though she wasn't a sitting member of parliament at the time of her nomination, which is interesting.
Yeah. And the family's influence isn't just limited to the premiership. Our sources indicate other family members, relatives, have held high-ranking positions across government ministries, the military, police.
And multiple generations serving as MPs. The family also has these strategic connections through marriage to other well-known Thai families mentioned in the sources, like the Damapong and Wong Swat families. It really further expands their network.
Okay, so we have these two incredibly powerful, deeply entrenched political families in neighboring countries, each with these extensive networks and significant national influence.
Right. And this is where one of our sources introduces a central and, let's say, quite controversial idea, this perceived close relationship or connection between the Hun and Shinawatra families.
Okay, let's unpack this idea from the source. How does it actually characterize this connection, and what does it suggest is its basis?
Well, this specific source calls it the Hun-Shin connection, and it offers a pretty strong interpretation of its foundation. The perspective presented is that this relationship stems from, well, significant benefits allegedly gained by the families from Cambodia.
Okay.
And this, the source contends, has led to a relationship almost like treating each other as relatives, potentially leading to these personal ties being prioritized over, say, national issues.
And the source backs this claim up with some very specific examples, right? Highlighting instances that are meant to illustrate this perceived closeness.
Exactly. For example, after the 2006 coup here in Thailand, Thaksin Shinawatra used Cambodia as a place of asylum. That's 1 point raised.
Right. And Hun Sen went a step further in 2009, appointing Thaksin as an economic advisor. That certainly raised eyebrows at the time, signaled a level of state support.
It did. The sources also mention instances of very public personal interaction, like Thaksin and his sister Yingluck attending Hun Sen's 71st birthday celebration in 2023.
And more recently, Hun Sen visiting Thaksin here in Thailand in 2024 after his release from effective detention. These aren't just, official meetings. They appear to be quite personal gestures.
Yeah, they do. Another significant tie mentioned is the marriage back in 2013 between Cheapha Wongsawat, who is Yingluck's niece,
Okay.
and Linal Nam, the son of a Cambodian politician, described in the source as very close to Hun Sen. The source points out that prominent figures from both the Shinawatra and Hun circles attended this wedding, sort of underscoring this interfamily connection.
And crucially, this particular source makes some pretty significant claims about Cambodian actions allegedly supportive of the Shinawatra family.
Right. It claims Cambodia facilitated Yingluck's travel when she left Thailand, and also provided refuge for individuals associated with the Red Shirts political movement who faced legal issues here in Thailand.
Including some related to Section 112, which, just for context, is Thailand's controversial lese-majestly law.
Exactly. These alleged actions, if true, would certainly be seen as highly supportive of the Shinawatra family and their political allies. It lends weight to the source's argument about a close, maybe even prioritized relationship.
Okay, so given this alleged Hun-Shin connection, let's turn to what this source claims is its impact on Thailand-Cambodia relations. This seems particularly relevant regarding recent border disputes.
Yeah, like the situation at Chombok and these long-standing claims over areas like the Emerald Triangle and the temple complexes Tam Win Tom, Tam Win Tot, Tak Kwai.
So what's the Cambodian stance, according to this source?
Well, according to the specific sources reporting, the stance of the Hun family and the Cambodian government on these disputes has been very clear and assertive. Hun Sen has publicly declared disputed areas like Chongbuk to be Cambodian territory.
Right.
And stated unequivocally that they will not withdraw troops from those areas.
And his son, Prime Minister Hun Manet.
He has explicitly stated the intention to take the dispute over those 4 specific areas, the Emerald Triangle and the 3 temple complexes, to the International Court of Justice, often called the World Court.
Okay, the ICJ route.
Yes. And he emphasized, according to the source, that this route would be pursued unilaterally via the ICJ. And significantly, that these specific disputed areas would not be discussed at bilateral Joint Boundary Committee meetings, the JBC, which is the usual mechanism.
So basically saying, we're taking this to the ICJ, we're not talking about it at the usual bilateral channels.
Pretty much. Now, this analysis from the source sharply contrasts Cambodia's assertive approach with what it portrays as the Thai government's response under Pattungtarn Shinawatra.
And how does it characterize the Thai response?
This critical source characterizes it as perceived as weak. suggesting a lack of firm assertion of Thai sovereignty or, strong action. The source notes instances like the deputy PM initially commenting about needing aerial evidence and referring to the JBC mechanism as the appropriate channel.
And later.
Later, that same deputy PM reportedly admitted encroachment at Chongbuk, but controversially labeled the area no man's land.
No man's land.
Yeah, and the source points out that this phrasing aligns with past comments attributed to Thaksin Shinawatra and strongly criticizes it as potentially, ceding or giving away territory.
Okay, so a real contrast in approach there, according to this analysis.
The source also highlights a perceived difference in military postures. Cambodia is described as reinforcing troops in disputed areas, using drones, potentially laying mines, conducting recent naval drills.
And Thailand's approach.
Contrasted with the Thai government's approach, which this source views as considerably less assertive in these specific areas.
And that discrepancy in negotiation strategy you mentioned is striking. Thailand saying, let's discuss the JBC. Cambodia saying, nope, these specific bits go straight to the ICJ.
Exactly. It highlights a fundamental disagreement on how to even approach resolving these disputes.
This source also raises other related issues, where this Han-Shin connection is potentially playing a role, right?
Yeah. Yes. It points to a perceived, less stringent approach by the current Thai government towards combating the rampant call center gangs operating within Cambodia.
The big scam operations.
Right. Especially when compared to efforts against similar groups maybe operating out of Myanmar. And Cambodia is widely acknowledged as a major hub for these activities.
And the source connects this to the relationship.
Well, it goes as far as claiming these operations contribute significantly to Cambodia's GDP. And it even raises a question, though, without providing hard evidence, about potential Thai involvement and profit sharing from these illegal activities.
Wow, that's a strong claim.
It is. It also notes the lack of action on suggestions like, say, closing border points or cutting off utilities as a way to pressure Cambodia on this issue.
So why does Cambodia seem so confident about the ICJ route, according to this source's analysis?
Well, the source suggests this confidence is based partly on past wins against Thailand at the World Court. Wins that one expert cited in the source attributes, in part, to maybe potential historical biases favoring former colonies in such international rulings.
Interesting point.
And the belief, according to this analysis, is that Cambodia might not be able to win militarily against Thailand, even with support from others, but feels certain Thailand won't use force because of the alleged Shin ties.
Okay. So the connection itself becomes a factor in the strategic calculation.
That's the argument presented.
Yeah.
They also believe, according to this source, that past Thai evidence wasn't effectively considered by the court in previous cases.
And the source talks about Cambodia's overall strategy.
Yeah, it presents Cambodia's strategic approach as this unified three-pronged spear: diplomacy, military presence, and the legal negotiation via the ICJ. Arguing this strategy works effectively because of Cambodia's centralized single leadership structure.
Contrast with Thailand.
Contrasted with what's perceived in this analysis as a less unified approach, or maybe internal divisions within the Thai system.
Right? It's a perspective that really highlights how differing internal political structures and these alleged personal networks might influence a state's ability to form and execute a cohesive national strategy, especially on sensitive sovereignty issues.
Definitely.
So bringing the core argument of this critical source together, the central thesis is pretty stark, isn't it?
It is. The close relationship between the two families is seen as a significant factor directly influencing the Thai government's responses to Cambodian actions on border issues and other points of contention.
In this source, well, it doesn't mince words in its conclusion.
No, it doesn't. From its perspective, this connection is seen as operating, quote, above the nation, potentially prioritizing family or personal ties over national interests.
And this contributes, in this source's view,
to a perception of the Thai government as a failed state, specifically in its handling of relations with Cambodia concerning sovereignty and national interests. A very strong critique.
Wow. It's quite remarkable, isn't it? How deeply personal and family connections can, well, according to this analysis anyway, be perceived as intertwining with the official state-to-state relationship.
And even impacting matters of national sovereignty and foreign policy.
Yeah. We've seen how these deep historical ties and perceived mutual benefits between two prominent political families in neighboring ASEAN countries can, as argued by one of our sources, be viewed as influencing governmental approaches.
influencing approaches to significant national issues like border disputes, even law enforcement cooperation.
It really makes you stop and think about the nature of power, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The dynamics of diplomacy and this complex web of national interest in a region where political dynasties have played such a long and significant role.
Absolutely. What does it mean for a nation when the relationships between its leaders and leaders elsewhere are described in such personal, almost familial terms, especially when sensitive national interests are potentially at stake?
And how do these personal histories, these networks, these alleged loyalties, how do they shape the way states actually interact on the world stage, particularly when they're trying to resolve long-standing disputes?
Yeah, definitely something to consider as you continue to observe the unfolding events and relationships in our interconnected world.